Hi, this time I'm going to give you a small update of what I'm going to do around this month of October. For those of you that are new to the channel, it's usually around this time that I try to produce some scary theme content or videos that have to do with creepy stuff and that you could perhaps use in your RPG sessions and campaigns, etc. I basically try to talk about scary stories, things related to folklore, some random stuff that you could perhaps use in your RPG adventures to build some interesting stories and try to establish that ambience of moody and scary stuff. It's quite interesting because every now and then, it's sometimes during a particular conversation or dialogue, some players tell me that they sometimes have problems or difficulty trying to bring some scary RPGs to the table. And I also had some experiences, I have experienced some difficulties trying to play specific games. And somewhat recently, probably about 2 weeks ago, more or less, I was talking with Marco from the Multiverse Distópico channel. I'm going to put a link in the description below to his channel. Remember that his content is in Portuguese, but it has English subtitles. And we were talking about genre mashups. And I believe the topic was superhero games or supers RPGs that were combined or mixed with horror or horrific themes. And I told him that maybe he would like to play Better Angels, although I haven't played that RPG yet. I've read about half of the rulebook. It looks pretty interesting. In that role-playing game, you basically play as this person with powers, but they are demonic powers. They are sort of like in contract with different demonic entities, and the player to your side is the one who is controlling the demon that is trying to let's say, take you down the path of darkness, because in order to keep your powers, you have to keep that sort of like a demon appeased with by doing like naughty things or committing some evil acts. And so it's a game that sounds a bit dramatic, and also it seems to have a lot of room for dark humor, I guess you could say. And then we started to talk about how sometimes it was difficult to play some scary or perhaps occult related RPGs because some people do not feel comfortable with those stories and themes. In the case of Marco, he's had some players in the past that are not comfortable with such things, and I also told him in other occasions I have also talked with Marco about that let's say problematic area of RPGs. And that reminds me of a time that I had a great Ravenloft campaign going, probably my best Ravenloft campaign, most likely. And well, several things happened, but one of the things that brought the campaign down was because that was when I was a teenager. One of the players had a very religious family, and he told them about Dungeons and Dragons, and you know, it was a bit around the time of the Christian panic. And they told him, no, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to give your soul to the devil by playing that or something. So they simply did not allow him to keep on playing. So every now and then there are some people that, for one reason or another, they avoid certain RPGs because they have like taboo content. And I think it's a bit of a waste because there are many great role-playing games that have those, let's say, touchy subjects, but they are great. There is a lot of thematic richness, and the rules also work great for what they try to represent. So in this time, I'm just going to share my thoughts based on my experience and the experience of other people that I have talked to, and perhaps at the end give some advice as to how to handle such things. Although it's pretty simple advice, maybe you could consider it more like encouragement, and just give my views on such things. So don't take this like the ultimate guide to handle scary topics in RPGs. Just take it like Abraham's experience with those things. So, well, first of all, I find it really fascinating how there are so many role-playing games that have such supernatural, paranormal, occult, magical, horrifying things at times, themes, non-player characters, stories. It's like they go really well together, like they mesh, intertwine quite well. You could say that from the moment RPGs were born, or we're getting that structure that we know of today. They started out bringing, for example, demons to the tabletop. You were fighting against different devils and demons. So it's kind of like, it's just it goes really well with RPGs, those kind of dark themes. So it got me thinking, and I think that this also applies to any horror-related fiction or form of entertainment. For example, scary movies, video games, etc. There is such there is great enjoyment to be had just watching those characters go through those horrifying situations, or in the case of tabletop role-playing games, you experiencing those emotions as if you were those characters that are at risk, facing off against this threat, this unknown and really terrifying thing. Or perhaps a group, a bunch of stuff that they simply are not well equipped to handle, or maybe they are equipped to handle such things. Perhaps it's a superhero game where they are fighting against Cthulhu or something, but it's still, there could be some unnerving moments. And I thought that maybe this could be simplifying things, but maybe that great enjoyment that we get from horror things comes from an awakened sense of survival and relieving stress, like stress relief. In the first case, I think that sometimes it depends on where you live, of course, and what you and the sort of activities that you do. But sometimes I think that people get, not all of them, of course, but some people get a bit out of touch with their more natural state of survival, that mentality that you just need to survive. Because this is the sort of enjoyment that you get when you do, for example, a lot of physical activity, or during certain meditation techniques. You get that sense of becoming natural, of becoming more like an animal, in a sense that you forget about all of those things that annoy you or that keep you, anxious or perhaps depressed or stressed, and you go to that place inside of you where it's just about surviving. And I think that many, for example, in this case, tabletop role-playing games that have to do with horror, perhaps Call of Cthulhu, Demon the Fallen, etc., because it's such a gruesome and dark theme or storyline that you are following, you get into that sense of survival, and it's really sometimes relaxing. Maybe that there is that sense of dread and fear, but if you go past that, there is this moment like you feel like everything is really clear. So that could be one reason as to why we enjoy those horror things. And the part of the stress relief specifically, let's say that you're having some trouble or some worrisome situation in real life, and you're playing this horror RPG, or as I was telling you, maybe it also applies to movies and video games, and you see how your character is going through these almost impossible to survive situations, and maybe you're thinking, oh, and I thought I had problems in real life. This character is getting chased down by this near immortal homicidal killer with an axe or something, and at least I'm not in that much danger like that character. And because horror stories and horror RPGs can go really over the top in their horror, there could be some really impossible things. Anything related to Lovecraft, for example, or anything along the lines of Clive Barker. There are some situations that simply cannot be reproduced in real life, and you could feel like a sense of relief that, oh, I am so glad that I'm not experiencing that in real life, or some things like that. So maybe that's why the horror genre is so popular. Now, when it comes to, for example, players, because I'm going to try to give you tips on how to play horror RPGs with players, and sometimes some useful things if you are a game master and you do not know how to handle horror things in the best way. First, let's talk about players. I think there is a type of player that it's pretty much impossible to get him to play a horror themed game, and those would be like extremely religious players, because religious players sometimes have forbidden things like taboos. For example, if you want a certain player to, oh, let's play this horror game or that, or whatever, even a board game, for example, and even if that role-playing game or board game doesn't have, for example, real demonic names, or that is those names that appear in history and mythology, or let's say symbols or strange words, even if it doesn't have that, that particular player still considers the entire thing taboo. He's going to tell you that, oh no, my religious leader forbids me from playing such things, but they are never able to give you like a good reason as to why. Because if you tell them, no, but you think we're going to like summon a devil or demon or something when we are playing, and oh, but then we can play where nothing's going to happen, but they can say, no, it's forbidden, but they never tell you why. It's just like, it's forbidden, and that's it. End of argument or question or whatever, discussion. So those players, it's pretty impossible to get them to play. That is, I've been playing RPGs for more than 2 decades, and I've never found like a moment where you could get one of those players to get playing a specific horror RPG. I actually, one time, I had this guy that was really religious, and we started playing Demon the Fallen, and we didn't even go past character creation, and he just kind of like stormed out of the room and went a bit into, how would you say, shock, or a very negative mental state. So it's very difficult to deal with those people. But there is another side on the religious aspect of things. There are also some religious people that, because of certain religions, they do not take those things seriously. So let's say you're playing a game that has to do with fairies or demons or ghosts and spirits, etc., etc., etc. And these players just are constantly like making jokes out of everything. I suspect that it's because they get too nervous or scared, but they consider it like, oh no, that's just some silly tale or something, and they're constantly trying to laugh it off or make jokes constantly, even though you arranged beforehand that we're going to try to create like a scary atmosphere. So those players are also, it's quite difficult to get them to the table. But then we have another type of player that I think it's possible to get that player to play a specific RPG if you make some modifications. And that player is a player that is not religious, but thinks that certain words and images, symbols, etc. have some powerful effects on people and the world around them. Like there is some sort of vibration. And well, some people could find this a bit nonsensical, but for example, maybe you could try that experiment where you take 2 plants or flowers, and you take care of both of them, but one plant you treat it with love, and you start saying, oh, you beautiful plant, you look so cute and so pretty and all of that, and you take this other plant and you're like, curse you plant, you stupid plant, evil plant, and such. And you see that one plant, the one that you like send love to it starts to grow and grow, even though the plant probably doesn't understand your your language. And who knows? Then the other plant that you insult and all of that, it starts to wither and dies, or it doesn't grow too well. And so maybe you could see it around those lines. And when it comes to images and symbols, you could also try an experiment that you could take a room where you spend a lot of time, maybe you're bedroom or your study or whatever, and you just start to decorate it with. You could try first placing a lot of violent images of corpses and painted all black and spikes and skulls and all sorts of disturbing images, and you're going to see that they're going to have a very negative effect on you. But you take a room and decorate it with beautiful colors, perhaps some calming nature-like colors like blue and green, something that you particularly like, and perhaps some delicate figures, and it's going to calm yourself, perhaps even produce a positive effect on you. But it all depends on the situation, of course. If you're going to be having a, for example, you're going to be playing like a really scary RPG, you could decorate the room with making it look really dark and disturbing, and it could be awesome for that particular mood. But because of that, you know that there is a power to the symbolism, to the shapes and colors that we see. So taking that into consideration, it could be logical to see why some people do not like hearing some demonic names or seeing some symbols, because in RPGs they're constantly using runes and demonic and angelic letters and who knows what, and you could see why they think that they have some sort of impact upon them. So this is the easiest way to solve this, is to modify anything that is disturbing for that person, because maybe you're playing Demon the Fallen from White Wolf, and maybe a player tells you, no, I don't want to play because that game, because it has real demonic names and Hebrew words of power and all of that, and you could say, well, we'll just remove those and we'll make our own stuff. So now you're facing the demon Fufisel or something, and I don't know, but that's too goofy. No, I try to come up with something scarier, like maybe it's like a cyberpunk demonic type of game. I mean, we build something like Technocrat Cell or something that sounds like scary, no? So you could modify those things, and if there are symbols that, oh, I don't like those symbols because they were used in rituals and things, those are dangerous, it's quite difficult, and you could use some made-up symbols as well. So I hope you do not lose some chances or opportunities to have great fun and experience that sense of dread and scary things that they tell you that sometimes takes away from the stress of your daily life, and it makes you forget about your problems, because and then you're seeing these other more gruesome and over-the-top problems that your characters are experiencing, and also that they get you into that sense of survival, that it's quite relaxing. So that's one way to get your players, those particular players, to play a horror-themed RPG. But now I also want to give some tips for game masters. Sometimes I have heard from different people that they get a bit into, what would you say, stuck when trying to run a horror game, because sometimes they don't feel like they believe enough in the story or in the monsters and ghouls and ghosts, etc., that they are bringing to the table, and they feel like, let's say, a blockage to their imagination. And I think this could be solved in a couple of different ways. One more safer than the other. The safe route or safe way would be to watch some YouTube videos. There are a lot of videos of urban exploration, of paranormal investigations, and you can get a lot of sense of what goes on out there. There's a lot of garbage videos out there, but there are some really good ones, so it's just a matter of finding the ones that you like the most. Even if they do not find something that we consider evidence, they still show some pretty awesome decadent urban landscapes, or if they are investigating some place in the wilderness, in forests and mountains and ancient ruins and castles, all of that is just fuel for you to come up with your stories and actually like get into the mindset of creating those scary adventures and campaigns. And the second way to do this, that is to get a bit more reality in your campaign would be for you to carry out your own investigations. Although I would recommend against it or advise against it, unless you are prepared, because putting aside that the matter that perhaps you could find something paranormal, some of those places are usually like the dens or hideouts for criminals or psychopaths, etc. So if you decide to, I'm going to that abandoned building because they say that there are demons or ghosts or whatever in it, but you enter it and maybe it's like a hideout for some criminals, and you watch something that you shouldn't have seen, and they try to attack you or whatever. So you should be really careful on the places that you are going to investigate. If you are going to do, let's say that little expedition to get more realism to your campaigns. And even, for example, you could also clear yourself about your own beliefs in the paranormal to bring it to the table, because maybe, as I was telling you, there is this haunted place and you go there and you stay there a couple of nights, and maybe you don't find anything. And you could say, well, I didn't find anything, but I got kind of spooked or creepy. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, and I can use those tricks that my mind was playing upon me to integrate those into my next Demon the Fallen campaign, or Ravenloft, or Ghost Stories campaign, Epoch, etc. And if you actually find something that you cannot explain, well, I tell you that's even better, as long as it doesn't affect you negatively in some way. That's why I would highly recommend watching some YouTube videos instead. But as you can see, there are many ways in which you can bring some people that do not like to play those games to the table, just by removing certain images and words. Maybe they like the demonic theme, or anything has to do with fairies or whatever, but they feel like a sense of real danger in using certain words or names. You could just remove them and voila, problem solved. And as I was telling you, in the case of the Game Master, there's just a lot of material for you to bring some reality to the table. So I guess that's about it when it comes to my thoughts on this particular matter. So I hope you will take that into consideration and encourage others to play some scary RPGs this month of October. Or if you yourself are not comfortable with those things, take into mind everything that I have said, and maybe you will have some fun playing some scary related RPGs. Maybe you won't be able to, you would be able to get to the table that game of Anima Beyond Fantasy that also has a lot of demonic names, or Demon the Fallen, maybe Wraith from White Wolf. I don't know if there's someone who felt that the theme was too much for them, but I could see some people thinking that, oh no, it deals with the spirits of the dead. So I hope at least that you found this video entertaining and informative, and I will try to bring come up with some more scary related content around this month of October. Thanks for watching, and see you later.